Hey there, everyone. Wade Bergquist, Sober Guy podcast and vlog, and wanted to do a quick video today and talk about Anthony Bourdain. And it's an interesting set of circumstances. You know, people commit suicide all the time. And of course, when a celebrity does so, things get amplified. More people talk about it. I get it. We also have to understand that Kate Spade took her life in the last week. Chester Bennington of Linkin Park took his life in the last few months. And of course, Chris Cornell did with Audioslave and Soundgarden. So I sit back and I consistently ask myself, what is missing in these people's lives? They're at the top of their game. Money does not seem to be a problem, because I sit in meetings all the time where people say, I just want to make more money. I want to have more control. I want to have more power in my life, in my career. And there is a disconnect. You know, I'm no psychologist. I'm no psychiatrist. I'm a guy who's been going to meetings for a long time, who's a little over 2.5 years sober. And I think having this dialogue, not from a CNN perspective, not from an NBC perspective, but from the perspective of community, like the normal guys in this world, opening this up. If one person sees this or hears this, and it starts a healthy dialogue, I think that's a positive thing. And that's one of the things that social media has given us, the ability for someone to turn on a camera, talk about something that's important like this, and open up additional conversation, because not oftentimes are people going to connect with Anderson Cooper, although I like Anderson Cooper. I have no problem with CNN. I have no problem with any other media outlet either. But I wanted to talk about a higher power when it comes to suicide. Again, not an expert here whatsoever. But there is obviously something missing in anyone who takes their own life. And the question I want to pose to you is, when the chips are so down, what is it that you're going to do? Where do you turn? And, sometimes people say, just go to the gym, just take a walk, just pick up the phone, just call someone. Oftentimes, that's not an option, because people feel so bad that they can't get out of bed. They can't pick up a phone. They can't go for a walk. And we talk about, on a consistent basis, higher power, higher power, higher power. And I'm not saying that the concept or the theme gets, blurred or kind of glossed over, or just it's a phrase that gets washed out in the program. But I've experienced it quite often where it does. Like, you need to find a higher power. And when it comes to, and I'll use Anthony Bourdain as the example, when it comes to that level of, I don't know if he was depressed, I don't know his state of mind whatsoever, but there was a connection that all the money, all the power, all the fame, the TV show, his life, there was a connection that was missing. And he was an addict. He talked about that openly in a number of interviews. And I just watched an interview a few minutes ago where it looks like, and I don't know if he was for sure, but I would bet money it was a bottle of beer that he was drinking during the interview. And it, to me, shows the power of this disease. And in the interview, Anthony said that it really wasn't a disease. Those were his words. Paraphrasing a little bit, but those were his words. And I'm a firm believer that alcoholism, drug addiction, it is a disease, but it's also a conscious choice. And I don't know the circumstances of the other celebrities of which I named in the beginning of this video, but I'm just going to focus on Anthony because I did like the guy. I think he was really, really cool. I liked his approach. He was very individualistic. He was very off the cuff. He wanted to do things his way. He was really rock and roll, a lot of attitude. And I respected him a lot with regard to how he told a story and the way he wanted to tell that story. But I keep thinking about the fact that he kicked his habit, he was sober, and he was potentially, again, looks like he was drinking in the video. A couple of years ago, I think it aired, 2016. And I'm a firm believer that this disease, because it is a disease, once again, also a conscious choice, it will take us all if we allow it to. Just will. It might take 10 years to do so, but eventually it'll take us. Because if you are a real alcoholic and you think or have thoughts sometimes the way I do, and you're not consistently working a program regardless of your wealth or your fame, this disease has the power to kill. It says it in the big book on page 66. Justified anger has the power to kill. Fancied or real has the power to kill. And I'm not saying that Anthony was angry by any means, but the words had the power to kill were chosen for a specific reason. And I think if we get off track, if we allow ourselves not to go to meetings, if we say, you know what, I kind of got this, I have a feeling that this disease will win 100% of the time when we start to develop that attitude. And I don't like going to meetings all the time. I oftentimes don't like the people in meetings. Jack G, a friend of mine in California, once said, he's like, I don't even like alcoholics. And either do I. Now, there's a lot of people in the program that I really enjoy. But from the group perspective, it's still tough for me to, get all rah-rah and go have coffee and let's go to a movie and let's fellowship and all this shit. It's just not easy for me. Plain and simple. For some people it is. And I know a lot of people who don't go to meetings and they're 5, 6, 7, 10 years sober. And that works for them. And I don't know. I hear things and I see things like this Anthony Bourdain suicide, and it just gets me thinking. And I don't want people to get lazy in the program. And when I say that I don't like alcoholics, technically speaking, it's true. But I don't wish any harm on someone. I don't want someone not to feel great. I just don't relate to people sometimes. Plain and simple. They're not bad people. It's just my inability to effectively relate to people. Even though I try, even though I want to, it's still something that I'm working on. And 3.5 years sober, we all have stuff to work on, and that's one of the things that I work on. But, don't allow yourself to get off the beam when it comes to this program. And again, I'm not trying to make any assumptions with regard to Anthony's life, but it did strike me pretty significantly. What's interesting, I had a chance to go to Europe last week, family vacation. It was fantastic. One of the gifts of the program for sure. And we were in Strasbourg, France. I think we were there on the 5th of June. Anthony passed away, according to his Wikipedia page, in Strasbourg, France, on the 8th of June. And out of all the cities in the world, out of the entire timing situation, the dates, we probably overlapped in the city. We were there for just a day, but I'm going to make the assumption he was there a couple of days early. Maybe not, but I think he was, especially preparing for the type of show that he did. And I about fell over when I read that he was in Strasbourg, France. And again, I'm just talking about that because of the coincidences. This is such a powerful program, and it's just really sad when that kind of stuff happens. And I often hear a lot of alcoholics talk about the fact that they don't have any control. Their life is over. They don't have control. I've got a list here of things that we have control over, and it's quite fascinating. I'll read a couple of them. We have control over our beliefs, our attitudes, our thoughts, our perspectives, how honest we are, who your friends are, what books you read, how often you exercise, the type of food you eat, how many risks you take, how you interpret situations, how kind you are to others, and the list goes on and on and on. We have control over certain situations, but sometimes when we don't want to go to a meeting, we don't have control over that because we just shut down. We don't want to call someone. We don't want to talk to a sponsor. We don't want to talk to a sponsee. And these little things that we don't want to do are actually monumental because it's those little things that allow us to keep going in this program. It sounds really cliche, but I use them all the time because cliches work. One snowflake is not a problem, nor will it make a difference. But if you add up 1,000,000 snowflakes, you probably have a pretty good sized snowball. And if you put in quintillions of snowflakes, you got a blizzard. And it does make a difference after a while. The littlest things in this program do make a difference. There's no such thing as extra credit. And I will say this. I wonder if Anthony was working a program. Plain and simple. That was my first thought. Ex-addict, right? Drinking in the program, not trying to talk down to anyone. He's not here to, stand up for himself, but I'm wondering if he's working a program. Plain and simple. The majority of alcoholics cannot stay sober without this program, without working the steps in their lives every single day. Plain and simple. And if you are having struggles today, picking yourself up, going down to the gym to work out, do something, put 3-4 things on a list, and you have to get these things done today, you're gonna feel better. Like tonight, I'm going to a meeting in about an hour and a half. I don't want to go at all. I was on vacation for the last week. There was no meetings on the boat. There were no meetings in the major cities we were at. I could not find them. I looked. There was no phone numbers to call. And so, I need a meeting tonight. I really do. I haven't been to one since last Thursday. But I don't want to go. And it's 5 minutes from my house. But that's the disease winning. And I have to overcome. I have to say, you know what? There's no thought about this. I'm going to the meeting tonight. There's no thought about me not calling my sponsor. It's just going to get done. Because I too, just like anyone else in this program, can slip into a very dark place, and it does not take much. And I have a feeling there's a lot of other people like that in this world. They don't want to talk about it. A friend of mine that I saw on Facebook, she commented on a post where, we talk about breast cancer, we talk about testicular cancer, we talk about all the major diseases, but we don't talk about depression in this world. We don't talk about suicide. We don't talk about people's mental health and how important that really is. And maybe I'm being too transparent. I don't know, but this is the only way I work. And I want people in this program to be sober. I need to be more sober. I have things to work on. Like I said earlier, me not liking other alcoholics, that's a major league thing I need to work on. Because it's not them, it's me. And, losing Anthony Bourdain, or anyone for that matter, is a major, major loss. It just is. And I wish, and I'm praying for his family and his daughter and his colleagues and his friends, just as I'm praying for anyone who's struggling right now with this disease. It is a very, very powerful disease, and we have to overcome. We just have to. We have to do the littlest things throughout the day to get us to the next point. Some days are going to be great, some days are not. Plain and simple. So with that said, there's a suicide prevention phone number on CNN's website. I hope people who are watching this are not in that particular situation at all. But man, it just doesn't take much for people to get there. And it is a topic of conversation that we should be having. You know, these suicides, whether they're famous people or regular people on the street, they don't have to happen. But we have to understand that people are in pain. There are addicts and alcoholics out there in their disease. There are addicts and alcoholics who are sober, who are struggling. And I want to open up this dialogue more. It's not something that you have to be embarrassed about if you're having a bad day, if you consistently feel like shit, if you're not at your best. You know, there are people to reach out to, but you got to do the work. And that's the one thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, is that it's such a program of action. You know, there's an old quote a long time ago that I heard, that we will carry the message, but we won't carry you. And there's a little bit to be said for that, don't get me wrong. It's a little bit harsh. You know, we need to carry people sometimes as well, but there comes a certain point in time where people have to do the work. You got to pick up the phone. You got to be willing to change your attitude, change your beliefs, change the fact that there is a solution out there if people are not feeling their best, especially in a suicidal situation. It just doesn't have to happen. So I invite you to help me open up this dialogue. Let's talk more about it. Let's talk about alcoholism. Let's talk about drug addiction. Let's talk about recovery. Let's talk about quality recovery as well. The places and the people who are truly helping individuals get and stay sober. And don't get me wrong, I've got no problem people making $1 or $2 in this industry. It's not going to go away. But let's look at the person first, and let's try to help these people regardless if you're famous or not. So with that being said, until next time, take care. Bye-bye.